हरिः ओम् नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अष्टाध्यायी परिचयः इत्यत्र अद्य 53तमः पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे कारकं तथा विभक्तिः एतयोः विषययोः अध्ययनस्य प्रारम्भं कुर्मः। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। अस्माकं वर्गस्य द्वे प्रयोजने अष्टाध्याय्याः आहत्य 600 सूत्राणां व्याख्यासहितम् उदाहरणसहितं च अध्ययनं तथा च अष्टाध्याय्याः प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य द्वितीयपादस्य च कंठस्थीकरणम्. Let me remind, please start the memorization after maybe 7th module or say 8th module. I will take a test on the memorization of 1.1, and then maybe again after 2 modules I will take the test of memorization of 1.2. So please start memorizing 1.1 as soon as you can. Let us start. We are in the 6th module of our course. In this module, the topics that we are going to discuss are Stri Pratyayaha, Karakam and Vibhaktihi, out of which in the previous 2 classes, we discussed the concept of Stri Pratyayaha. In brief, we took a look at 1 to 2 sutras of each of the major Stri Pratyayas. Now we are going to switch gears starting from today's class, and we are going to talk about the concept of Karaka and Vibhaktis. Before today's class, I explicitly asked a question on our group, what is the difference between Karaka and Vibhakti? A lot of you gave different answers. So some of these were kind of close to what the expected answer was or what the real concept is. Some others were too far-fetched. So it is important that you pay close attention and understand this particular concept of Karaka and Vibhakti once for all. Today and tomorrow, we are going to discuss about the Karaka and Vibhakti together. There will be some focus on Karakas, some focus on Vibhaktis. Then in the next week, we will focus purely on the Karakas. And then the week after that, we will start with the concept of Vibhaktis. So let us start the most fundamental question, Kim Nama Karakam? And again, there will be another question a few slides later, Kim Nama Vibhaktihi? The concepts are going to be somewhat tricky, complex, and more importantly, there are going to be a lot of things that are completely going to turn or overturn your understanding of Karaka and Vibhakti that you have done so far through whatever Shiksha, Kovida, or whatever other basic grammar courses you have gone through. So I'll go slow. Anytime you want me to repeat something, let me know. Anytime you have any question, you can either raise your hand or type the question over here. We'll start with the very basic things. Kim Nama Karakam. Now everybody knows there was also a discussion on the group. This word starts from the dhatu kru. So kru plus sarnavula pratyaya like pathaka and so on, lekhaka and so on. There is this kru plus sarnavula giving the word karaka. So before we go to this particular vyutpatti, tatra kru iti dhatuhu asti. Kru iti dhatoho arthaha करोति डुक्रोहि करणे तत्र क्रिया इति कश्चन विशेषः विद्यते. In many of your answers that you gave on the group, there was a discussion about the kriya. People said something like kriya janakam karakam and so on, kriyanvayi karakam and so on. So there was a concept of this kriya. So let's first focus on what exactly kriya is. And the textbook vyutpatti of this word is kriyate anaya iti kriya. Now, this is actually a useless definition because if you try to translate it in English, it will say that with which something is done is action. Doesn't really make sense because that's exactly the action that you're talking about. So, kriyate anaya iti kriya, this is the textbook vyutpatti. You have the kru dhatu. There is a krut pratyaya called sh. It's a krut pratyaya. You add the sh and then you add the tap, because kru plus sh becomes kriya, and then you add the tapa pratyaya over there. There is some other components in the prakriya that are involved, but we will not go in the details, and you get the final form as kriya. A more compelling or useful definition is धात्वर्थः kriya. तत्र धातु पाठे गम पठ लिख हस इत्यादीनां धातूनां यः अर्थः निर्दिष्टः अस्ति, नो चेत् इत्यादिभिः धातुभिः मनसि यः अर्थः स्पष्टीभवति सः अर्थः एव क्रिया. So when we say gama, we get some idea of certain meaning in our mind. That is the kriya called gama. So it is still a conceptual definition. Kriyate anaya iti kriya is the vyutpatti wise textbook definition. Dhatvarthaha kriya is a conceptual definition. We are going to materialize it. We are going to talk about dhatvartha in tomorrow's class in significant amount of details. And that at that particular time you will understand more about this particular definition. But for now it is okay to say क्रियते अनया इति क्रिया और धात्वर्थः क्रिया गम पठ इत्यादिभिः धातुभिः यः अर्थः मनसि सिद्ध्यति, यः अर्थः निर्दिश्यते, सः अर्थः एव क्रिया इति अत्र आशयः. The next point is this particular kriya can be expressed in a sentence by two different ways. वाक्ये क्रियायाः निर्देशः द्वाभ्यां प्रकाराभ्यां संभवति. तिङन्तेन क्रिया निर्देशः कृदन्तेन च क्रिया निर्देशः. So when you say रामः ग्रामं गच्छति, तत्र गम इति धातोः यः तिप् प्रत्यय विहितः, गच्छति इति तिङन्तं तत्र यत् सिद्ध्यति, तेन तिङन्तेन अत्र गमनक्रियायाः निर्देशः भवति. The other example, Ramaha Gramam Gataha. In this particular sentence, the same action of going, the action indicated by Gama Dhatu is indicated by the Krudanta. Gama plus Kta is a Krudanta. Now we have a Siddhanta called Ekating Vakyam. So when you have a sentence like Ramaha Gramam Gataha, you will add a verb like Asti or Asit. अत्र अस्ति आसीत् इति तिङन्तस्य अध्याहारः अवश्यं भवति. But that is basically to satisfy that siddhanta of ekating vakyam. Asti or asit is not indicating a direct kriya per se. The actual action of going, whether the sentence is Ramaha Gramam Gataha or Ramaha Gramam Gataha Asti or Ramaha Gramam Gataha Asit, whichever is the sentence, the action of going is indicated by the Kridanta itself. And therefore अत्र कृदन्तेन क्रिया निर्देशः कृतः अस्ति. अनेन प्रकारेण वाक्ये क्रियायाः निर्देशः तिङन्तेन संभवति, कृदन्तेन च संभवति. Other entities like a tadhita and so on, they would not directly indicate a kriya. There are some remote exceptions, but we will keep those aside. For now, understand that kriyayaha nirdeshaha pramukhyena tiङantena sambhavati, no chet krudantena sambhavati. With this, now we can come back to the familiar definition of the word karaka. This is generated by adding the nvul pratyaya to the kru verb, and nvul is a pratyaya that is added in the kartrartha sense. Kartrartha is the doer of that action. So likhati saha lekhakaha, pathati saha pathakaha. In this particular way, karoti saha karakaha, no chet karoti tat karakam. So anything that does an action is a karaka. Yaha kriyam karoti. Now when you say kriyam karoti, it is not only the Devadatta who is actually doing the action of, say for example, cooking, but it is every object that participates in the action, because in their own capacity, these objects are also doing the work. When Rama or say Devadatta is cooking something in the kitchen, say cooking rice in the kitchen, the Patra is also doing the work of holding that rice, without which the Kriya is not possible. The kitchen is also doing the work of holding the entire apparatus into Devadatta in it. The Agni is doing the work of heating the water or smoothening the rice and so on. The rice itself is doing the work by getting softened, getting moistened. So anything that does the action, and obviously Devadatta is doing work because he is the one who is assembling everything. So anything that participates in the action is properly or is perfectly explained as kriyam karoti, and that is a karaka. And that is exactly the reason why the well-known definitions like Kriya Janakam Karakam or Kriyanvayi Karakam are born. So the fundamental basis of these particular two definitions or these particular two famous sentences, Kriya Janakam Karakam and Kriyanvayi Karakam, is this particular Vyutpatti. Anything that does the Kriya is a Karaka. That's exactly meant by Kriya Janakam. Janaka is in technical terms Janayati, the one who helps giving the birth. So all these objects, let it be the Agni, let it be the rice, let it be the Patra and so on, all of these together give the birth to the action of doing. So Kriyam Janayati. प्रत्येकं क्रियायाः पूर्त्यर्थं ये पदार्थाः आवश्यकाः ते सर्वे पदार्थाः कारकं नाम्ना ज्ञायन्ते. And then there is another definition which is also an equivalent definition, kriyanvayi karakam, the one that is directly linked to the kriya. Anvaya means gets directly linked. So kriyanvayi karakam वाक्ये विद्यमानस्य यस्य शब्दस्य क्रियया सह साक्षात् अन्वयः भवति, the one that gets directly linked with the verb in the sentence, the padartha associated with that word is the karak of that kriya. So here is an example. If you have a sentence, देवदत्तस्य पुत्रः कृष्णस्य पाकगृहे अग्निना पात्रे ओदनम पचति. Purposefully a complex sentence is taken. देवदत्तस्य पुत्रः कृष्णस्य पाकगृहे अग्निना पात्रे ओदनम पचति. The action, the kriya, the one that is indicated by the pacha dhatu is pachana kriya, and all the words in this particular sentence that are directly linked to the pachati verb, which is the same as all the objects which are actually necessary to perform the action. What all these? The Devadattaha, typing mistake, I should have written Devadattaha, or say Rama, whosoever is the karta. Rama, let's say Ramasya instead of Devadattasya. So you have Ramaha, that's the person. Pakagruham, that's the place. Agnihi, Odanam, Patraha, and so on. Patram, and so on. So eteshu kopi padarthaha nasti chet pachana kriya naiva sambhavati. Putraha, I'm creating new karta everywhere. Let's fix this. Ramasya. So Ramasya putraha, sorry, putraha, not Ramaha, putraha. Putraha. Let's everywhere now I am putraha. Sorry, give me 1 minute. Ramaha and Krishnaha and Ramaha. Let's fix this home. Let's change this to Ramaha and Rama Padartha. And here Putra Padartha. Now let's go over this slide again. Krishnas Ramasya Putraha, sorry. Ramasya Putraha Krishnasya Pakagruhe Agnina Odanam Pachati. In this particular action, you have Putra, which is doing the action of cooking. You have Pakagruha, which is the place where the cooking happens. Agni, Odanam, also the Patram. Eteshu kopi padartha nasti chet pacharakriya naiva sambhavati. Yatohi, Putra is participating in that action in one way. Pakagruham pachanakriyartham sthalarupena karyam karoti. अग्निः पचनक्रियार्थम् आवश्यकम् औष्ण्यं ददाति, ओदनं तस्य पदार्थस्य पचनं भवति, पात्रम् ओदनं स्वस्मिन् धरति. So each of them plays an important role, just like the way in an organization, in a team, for example, every member of the team, including the manager, including say team lead and so on, have their own specific defined work. All of them contribute to the success of the project. In exactly the same way, putra padarthaha, pakagruha padarthaha, agni padarthaha, odana padarthaha, patra padarthaha, ete sarvepi padarthaha पचन क्रियायाः कारकाणि सन्ति. So what is the definition of कारकम? क्रियान्वयी कारकम, क्रियाजनकम कारकम. And there are other words in this particular sentence. रामस्य पुत्रः or Krishnasya pakagruhe. So these two words, Ramasya and Krishnasya, these are not required for the completion of the action. They are not directly connected to the verb. So kriyayaha purtyartham anavashakaha padarthaha Krishnaha no chet Ramaha एतयोः क्रियया सह अन्वयः नास्ति, एतौ न स्तः चेदपि पचन क्रिया अवश्यम संभवति. So Rama, even if he is not there, or even if the Rama is not related to Putra, that doesn't affect the pachana kriya. Same with Krishna and Pakagruha. We need the Pakagruha. We don't really care whom it belongs to. Same for Putra, Agnina, Patre, Odram. These are all the things that are useful for the action. So these are कारकास. बट कृष्ण पदार्थः राम पदार्थः पचन क्रियायाः कारकम नास्ति. Chandramouli ji, you have a question?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My specific question was, in this particular example, we spoke about how fire, the kitchen, and all these are participating in the process of cooking. But cooking itself will have subtasks, right? In terms of cutting, boiling, and lighting the fire. What is the Karaka view of subkriyas?
Correct.
Upakriyas?
So when you say pachati, all the subkriyas are included in this particular pachati action. When you're specifically talking about pachati, everything starting from stepping into kitchen up to taking that rice out of the cooker or patram is all included in it, and all these karakas are considered to be karakas of that. If you want to further drill it down, then you need a separate verb. So pravishati, so pakagruham pravishati. So you have to create a separate sentence, and then karakas will be different. Clear? And we are going to talk about this particular question. There is a little bit more discussion about this that we will do in tomorrow's class when we focus on dhatvarthaha kriya component that I mentioned in the previous slide. Let's move on. Now with this we have understood the concept of karaka. Now we will talk about the vibhaktis, but before we talk about that, I mean, we already have studied the sutram called vibhaktischa. Vibhakti, we have studied that it is a grammatical term given to various pratyayas. We have studied that sutram. So let us understand the difference between the karaka and vibhakti. Here is a very simple analogy to understand this difference. The difference between Karaka and Vibhakti is exactly the difference between Sri Ramachandra, the person, and the picture of Sri Ramachandra. Is the person Sri Ramachandra same as the picture of Sri Ramachandra? In some sense, yes. Because when you want to pray to Sri Ramachandra, you cannot catch the person by hand. You have to pray to the picture or a photo frame. You do the puja and so on. But actually, are they same? They are not same. The picture is a representation of Sri Ramachandra in our world. In exactly the same way, Vibhakti is a representation of Karaka in the Shabda Shastra. Let us understand this more. Before that, the one most important point that you have to understand is that Karaka is a term given to the object, the physical object, just like the actual entity Sri Ramachandra. that is being compared to Karaka. The picture of Sri Ramachandra on a paper, a photo, or even a word Rama written on a paper is compared to the Vibhakti. So कारक इति पदार्थस्य संज्ञा अस्ति, शब्दस्य संज्ञा नास्ति. When you create a sentence like putraha odanam pachati, in this particular sentence, the actual rice grains, the physical rice grains, odana padartha karma samnyakaha asti, odana shabdaha na. Therefore, we say kriya janakam karakam kriyayaha purtyartham. If you go to the two slides before, kriyayaha purtyartham ye ye padarthaha avashyakaha te sarve karakam namna jnayante. Karaka is an object. In the same way, vakye vidyamanasya yasya shabdasya, because it is a vakya, I have to talk about the shabda. So vakye vidyamanasya yasya shabdasya kriyaya sah sakshat अन्वयः भवति, तेन शब्देन निर्दिष्टः पदार्थः कारक रूपेण स्वीक्रियते. So कारक is a physical object. So पुत्रः ओदनं पचति इत्यत्र ओदन पदार्थः कर्म सम्यकः अस्ति, ओदन शब्दः कर्म सम्यकः नास्ति. And what do you mean when we say odana padarthaha karma samyakaha asti? We actually say, somebody has written this on the group, we actually say odana padarthe karma shaktihi vidyate. Odana padarthe karmatvam asti. So there is this odana padartha which is sitting quietly in that particular whatever dabba in the kitchen. In that odana padartha there is no karmatva because the cooking action has not started. But as soon as the same odana padartha is taken in the patram with an intention of cooking, that karma shakti enters the odana padartha. The Agni might be burning, but there is no Karana Shakti in that Agni because the Pachana Kriya itself is not existing. How can Karakas exist when the Kriya is not there? But when the actual action of cooking starts, the Karana Shakti enters into that Agni, making that Agni Padartha as Karana Karaka. So technically, padarthe vidyamana shakti karakam namna jnayate iti mukhyaha siddhantaha. In Vakyapadiyam, if you go to Vakyapadiyam, where is Vakyapadiyam on the website? It's one of the very interesting, very important Arthika Granthas. Go to Vakyapadiyam and Arthika Grantha, go to 3.7. Padakande sadhana samuddeshaha. Sadhana means karaka. Kriyam sadhayati, kriyam karoti. So it is called karaka, it is also called sadhana. Sadhana, it is an easy word to understand. Sadhana is anything that helps doing something. So sadhana, samuddesha is chapter or something like that. So lesson. So sadhana samuddesha ityatra karakasya vishaye chintanam krutam asti. The very first sloka of Vakyapadiyam. Swashraye samavetanam tadvadevashrayantare क्रियाणाम अभिनिष्पत्त्यौ सामर्थ्यम साधनम विदुः. So kriyanam abhinishpatti. Abhinishpatti means completion of the kriya. In order to complete any kriya, whatever shakti, samarthya is shakti. Whatever shakti is required to complete that kriya, that Shakti is not the physical power of Devadatta with which he is lifting the utensils and all that. That's not the Shakti we are talking. It is a hypothetical concept. It is a Shakti energy with which the Kriya is possible. So Agni, it is burning. But that Shakti with which it will let Agni burn the water in the Kriya of Pachati. So that Samarthya, that Shakti is called sadhana. So viduhu ityukte jnayate jananti janaha. So kriyanam abhinishpattau yat samarthyam asti ya shaktihi vidyate sa shaktihi eva sadhanam ityukte karakam namna jnayate परंतु सौलभ्यार्थम प्रायेण पदार्थस्य एव कारकत्वं स्वीकृतम् अस्ति. So in general, you don't make that particular distinction and don't necessarily at this level go in those that deep and say padarthe vidyamana shaktihi karaka samnyaka asti. You simply say padarthaha eva karaka samnyakah asti. So saulabhyartham padarthasya karakattvena karakatvam svikrutam asti. A simple example over here is if you say Xerox. Xerox is actually name of a company that does the photocopying. I don't know if that company exists anymore or not, but Xerox is actually name of a company. Or Google, for example. You Google it. Means what? Google is the name of a company that lets you search. So you Google it. There the name of the company is directly being used in order to indicate that particular action. Exactly same thing happening over here. पदार्थे विद्यमाना शक्तिः कारकरूपेण ज्ञायते परन्तु सौलभ्यार्थं पदार्थस्य एव कारकत्वं स्वीकृतमस्ति तत्र विशेषः भेदः न वर्तते. So this is all about the karaka. What about the vibhakti now? We have already seen the sutram vibhaktisha. So vibhakti iti pratyayasya samnya. The 21 sup pratyayas are called vibhaktis. We have already studied these pratyayas, the prakriya and so on. 21 sup pratyayas are called vibhaktis. We have also discussed that there are 18 ting pratyayas that are also called vibhaktis. There are certain tadhita pratyayas that are also called vibhaktis, but that particular part, the 18 ting pratyayas and certain tadhita pratyayas have nothing to contribute with the current discussion. So in the discussion of karaka and vibhakti, it is the 21 sup pratyayas that matter. So ekavimshatihi sup pratyayaha ye santi tesham vibhaktihi iti samnya bhavati. So when you take the word odanam has the pratyaya. This pratyaya is vibhakti. Odana shabda is not vibhakti. Odana padartha is not vibhakti. Odana padartha is a karaka. When the cooking action happens, Odana padartha has the karma karaka shakti. So Odana padartha is karma karaka. Odana shabda is neither karaka nor vibhakti. And the pratyaya which is added at the end of Odana, this is the vibhakti. Odana shabda, Odanam. The full pratyayanta word is called vibhaktiyanta shabdaha or vibhakti pratyayanta shabdaha. And therefore the takeaway message over here is karakam is not same as vibhakti. Karakam iti padarthasya samnya. No chet karakam iti padarthe upasthitayaha shaktehe samnya. Vibhaktihi iti sup pratyayasya samnya. This is the fundamental difference between the karaka and vibhakti. Any questions so far? Okay, agre gacchamaha. Now that we know the difference between karaka and vibhakti, let us move ahead to the relationship between the two. So karaka vibhaktyor madhye vidyamanaha sambandhaha. If one is a padartha, other is a pratyaya, what is the relation? So understand this relation. We start from the very basic. पदार्थानां निर्देशार्थं भाषायां शब्दाः प्रयुज्यन्ते. So what is this exactly? O, the, na? It is a sequence of letters O plus the plus a plus na plus a. It is simply varnakramaha. But this particular varnakramaha indicates the physical concept of the rice grains. So the meaning of the word is a concept in the real world. So padarthanam nirdeshartham bhashayam shabdaha prayujjante. So here is the action of cooking. Whatever is in that vessel, tasya padarthasya nirdeshartham bhashayam odana iti shabdaha prayujjate. अपरस्य पदार्थस्य निर्देशार्थं भाषायां पात्र इति शब्दः प्रयुज्यते इतोपि अन्यस्य पदार्थस्य निर्देशार्थं भाषायाम् अग्नि इति शब्दः प्रयुज्यते. I am not putting vibhakti pratyas in front of them because the vibhakti pratyas are not going to indicate the word. Oh, the naha, the visarga or the sup pratyay has nothing to do with the indication of the padartha. Oh, the na, the verbatim pratipadika indicates the padartha. That's why arthavat pratipadikam. It has a meaning. When you utter the word odana, some concept, some meaning generates in your mind which maps to some physical object. It may be a physical object that you can see in the word, or it may be a hypothetical object, it may be a concept, for example, Atman and so on, Manaha and so on. But some concept gets some visualization in your mind. That particular padartha is indicated using the pratipadikam or using the word. Now, yatra bhinnaha padarthaha kriyayam bhagam grindhanti. So when the odana is sitting quietly in that particular dabba, and when the patram is sitting on the in the kitchen, and when the agni is not ignited, or if it is ignited and it's doing some other work, there is no cooking action happening. So just because there is odana and there is patra and there is agni doesn't mean pachana kriya is happening. When the kriya actually starts happening, that's where the shakti enters into these individual padarthas. So yatra padarthaha kriyayam bhagam grudhnanti tada teshu padartheshu ya karaka shakti antarbhavati. So odana quietly sitting on a kitchen shelf does not have the karma shakti. Odana taken in the patram with the intention of cooking has the karma shakti. So that karaka shakti. So how do you distinguish between the odana which is sitting on the rack and the odana which is in the patram? They look identical, they smell identical, but one does not have a karaka shakti, one has a karaka shakti. In order to indicate that difference, in order to indicate that karaka shakti, now we take the same word odana and add a vibhakti pratyaya on the top of it. So odana padarthe upasthitam karma shaktim darshayitum odana shabdat iti pratyayah prayujyate. You cannot add pratyaya for the rice that is sitting on the shelf. You have to add the pratyaya for a rice that is in the patram with an intention of cooking. That's where the vibhaktis come in the picture. ओदन पदार्थे या कर्म शक्ति ही उपस्थिता भवति. Just like the way you are a simple person, but you suddenly study for 5-6 years and take a degree called medical degree, you add those words DR in front of you. That letters DR indicate your medical degree. The letters CA indicate your chartered accountant degree. In exactly the same way, the pratyaya indicates the karma shakti. The ni pratyaya in attached to the patra indicates the adhikarana shakti. The ta pratyaya attached to the word agni indicates the karana shakti. So all supratyayas are added purely for indicating the shakti, the karaka that has suddenly appeared in that particular object. And therefore, the sup pratyayas are not bringing any new meaning on their own. The meaning is there in the, or the new shakti is there in the padartha itself. Just like the way the medical knowledge is in that person itself, the DR words prefixed in the name is not going to give that medical knowledge. It is only going to express the fact that you have the medical knowledge. In exactly the same way, the supratyayas do not bring in the external shakti, do not bring external meaning. They will only express the existing shakti in that padartha. And therefore, our inquisitive student asks, Acharyaha Ashtadhyayam uktaha prayena sarvepi pratyayaha kanchana nutanam artham pratipadayanti. For example, there is a matupa pratyaya which will be used in the meaning of tad asya asti. So this is a new meaning. Buddhihi asya asti saha buddhiman. So the word buddhiman doesn't have the same meaning as buddhi. Buddhi is an aspect, one aspect, and buddhiman indicates a completely different entity who is having the buddhi. So buddhi asya asti iti bhinnasya padarthasya bhinnasya arthasya nirdeshah kriyate. Similarly, there is an apatyartha pratyay called iya. Dasharathasya apatyam dasharathihi. The iya padartha is indicating Prabhu Ramachandra, which is a completely different entity than Dasharatha. So pratyayas like matup or iya are indicating different objects. परंतु सुप प्रत्ययानाम विषये तथा न स्यात् इति अहम चिंतयामि. So now he is trying to come up with some argument. He is trying to visualize what is the difference between these other pratyayas and the sup pratyayas. सुप प्रत्ययानां विषये तथा न स्यात् इति अहं चिन्तयामि. किमर्थमिति चेत् सुप प्रत्ययाः कमपि नूतनम् अर्थं न दर्शयन्ति, अर्थं न ज्ञापयन्ति, पदार्थे विद्यमानं विशिष्टं कारकत्वं केवलं प्रकटीकुर्वन्ति. किं मम चिन्तनम् उचितमस्ति? So he is just trying to confirm, and then Acharya nods. He says, yes, सम्यक् अवगतं त्वया. कारकम् इति पदार्थे विद्यमाना शक्तिः एव. कारक is in the padartha. अतः न हि केवलं अतः न हि सुप् प्रत्ययैः कारकत्वं नूतनरूपेण आरोप्यते. Sup pratyayas are not indicating karakatva. You do not bring an pratyaya with the karaka shakti and attach it to odana word. The odana padartha must first have the karaka shakti, and the pratyaya will just express it. Remember this example of dr indicating the medical knowledge. So यदा कस्मिंश्चित् प्रत्यये काचित् कारकशक्तिः उपतिष्ठति तदा तस्याः कारकशक्तेः केवलं प्रकटीकरणार्थं यथोचितं सुप्रत्ययः तत्पदार्थवाचक शब्दात् संयोज्यते. You cannot add a pratyaya to a padartha itself, so you have to do a two level of indirection. First, the odana padartha is to be represented by a sequence of letters o, the, na, indicating the odana word. And then the shakti has to be represented by another pratyaya on the top of, not another entity on the top of it called giving a complete word called odanam. So कारक शक्तेः प्रकटीकरणार्थं यथोचितं सुप्रत्ययः तत्पदार्थवाचक शब्दात् संयोज्यते. अतएव व्याकरणशास्त्रे सुप् प्रत्ययाः स्वार्थिक प्रत्ययाः इति नाम्ना स्वीकृताः सन्ति. स्वार्थिक स्वस्य एव अर्थं प्रकटीकुर्वन्ति. स्वार्थिक प्रत्ययाः इत्युक्ते ते प्रत्ययाः ये कमपि नूतनम् अर्थं न ददति, अपितु प्रकृतेः स्व अर्थम् एव प्रकटीकुर्वन्ति. अष्टाध्याय्यां बहवः प्रत्ययाः स्वार्थिक प्रत्ययाः सन्ति. स्त्री प्रत्ययाः अपि स्वार्थिकाः इति पूर्वमेव अस्माभिः दृष्टमस्ति. सुप् प्रत्ययाः अपि स्वार्थिकेषु एव अन्यतमाः. So sup pratyayas are also one amongst the swarthika pratyayas. Stree pratyayas were also swarthika pratyayas. There will be some tadhita pratyayas that we will learn. They will be also swarthika pratyayas. And then we discuss the sup pratyayas. So the student automatically has the next follow-up question. Acharya, kim ting pratyayaha api swarthikaha va? Is ting pratyayas also swarthika? And Acharya says, naiva naiva, ting pratyayaha swarthikaha na, ting pratyayaihi kalasya nirdeshah bhavati. Pathati has the same ting pratyaya as a pathat, but there is a difference of kala. Vachanasya nirdeshah bhavati, purushasya nirdeshah bhavati. So ting pratyayas are not swarthika pratyayas, परन्तु तस्मिन् विषये अग्रिमे पाठे पठामः. In tomorrow's class we are going to talk about these aspects. इदानीं तस्य चिन्तनं मास्तु. So the only takeaway message from this particular discussion for ting pratyayas is that ting pratyayas are not swarthikas because they can indicate kala, vachana and purusha, but we will talk about those in tomorrow's class. Let us move ahead. I see there are a few questions over here, but they are not directly related. How about Ramasya and Krishnasya? I already mentioned they have nothing to do with the Kriya. So Rama is not participating in the Kriya. Krishna is not participating in the Kriya. So anybody, Vidyaji, you want to elaborate on the question.
न महोदय तत्र तस्य विषये प्रश्नः नास्ति. मम प्रश्नः तु तत्र रामस्य इति अस्ति, तत्र क्रियया अन्वितः नास्ति सा विभक्तिः, परन्तु सुप्रत्ययः तु कृष्णस्य
सुप्रत्यय कथं तत्र सुप्रत्यय कथं तत्र आगतः इति अग्रे वदिष्यामि. So for now we have seen that supratyayas are added to indicate the karaka, but in case of Ramasya there is a supratyaya but there is no karaka. How is supratyaya added? I'll talk about it in some 3-4 slides.
तत्र विद्यमानः सुप्रत्ययः अपि
सर्वत्र सुप्रत्ययः स्वार्थे एव वर्तते. तत्र सर्वत्र विद्यमानः सुप्रत्ययः स्वार्थे एव वर्तते.
धन्यवादः.
Any further questions over here? There are some comments, but I'll not talk about this. There is a question and I'm not addressed. You can raise your hands. If not, let's actually move to the sutras. So Ashtadhyayam Karaka Prakaranam, Karakani Shat, everybody knows this. Karta Karma, Karanam, Sampradanam, Apadanam and Adhikaranam. Karta, the Pratipadikam is Kartru. Karma, the Pratipadikam is Karman Nakaranta, and then everywhere else it is Akarant. So Karanam, Sampradanam and so on, Prathama Ekvachanam has been written. Karika also, I hope everybody has memorized. If not, I think this is basic, you would have learnt it earlier, but if not, good time to memorize. Karta karma cha karanam sampradanam tathaiva cha apadanadhikaranam ityapuhu karakani shat. So these are 6 karakas. In Ashtadhyayi, the Karaka Prakaranam starts in 1.4.23. So Prathamadhyayasya Chaturthe Pade, this particular Karaka Prakaranam. So remember, we have seen some sutras of this pada. Okay, so we have seen Akadara Deka Samya. I mean, I have not taught it, but we have seen it in some places. Vipratishedhe Karam Karyam, Yustriakhyo Nadi, Sheshogya Sakhi. So these are the sutras that we have studied. So 1.4 is somewhat familiar to us. Rasvam Laghu, Sanyoge Guru, Dirgham Cha, Yasmat Pratyavidistadadi Pratyengam, Suptingantam Padam, Yachibham. So again, Yachibham is explained. Bahushu Bahuvachanam, Dvekayor Dvivachanai Kavachanai. So all these sutras are taught. In the 1.4.23, we have the Karakadhikara. That's where the Karaka Prakaranam starts. Starts from 1.4.23 Karake and goes all the way up to Tat Prayojako Hetushcha. 1.4.55. This is the last sutram, and after that Pragrishwaran Nipataha, the Nipata Samnya starts after that. So you have this particular Karaka Prakaranam. I want to go over this Karaka Prakaranam slowly. So we have Karake, and now observe what Panini Maharshi is doing. He starts talking about Apadana Karakam. So Dhruvam Apaye Padanam, Bhitrarthanam Bhaya Hetu, and so on. 10 sutras he spans about the Apadana Karakam. After that, he talks about Sampradana Karakam. Karmanayam Abhipraiti Sa Sampradanam. Rucharthanam Priyamanaha and so on. So then he talks about the Sampradana Karakam. Then he talks about Karana Karakam. So Apadana Karakam, Sampradana Karakam, then Karana Karakam. Sadhakatamam Karanam. Only one sutram of Karma Karakam. Sadhanatamam Karanam. There are a bunch of them, but you don't need to worry about them. Then he talks about Adhikarana Karakam, Adharodhikaranam. Only one sutram, Adharodhikaranam. Then he talks about Karma Karakam, Adhishing Sthasam Karma. So keeps on going for Karma Karakam. And finally, he talks about Kartru Karakam, Swatantraha Karta, Tat Prayojako Hetusha. That's where the Karaka Prakaranam ends. So in the Karaka Prakaranam, the sutras are ordered in the order of Apadana Karakam, Sampradana Karakam, Karana Karakam, Adhikarana Karakam, Karma Karakam, and finally Kartru Karakam. Why such a weird order? Why not kartru karma normal? Kartru karma karana sampradana apadana and adhikarana? Because all these particular sutras are arranged in order to use the property of vipratishedha. At any point in time when there is a conflict between two karakas, the same padartha gets one shakti and also gets another shakti. You are going to see some examples. In this particular case, which shakti has to be preferred, that particular decision done using vipratishedhe param karyam is the reason why ordering is messed up like this, or ordering is created like this. So yatra dve athva adhikani karakani yugapat sambhavanti tatra parasutrena vihitam karakam eva prayoktavyam iti arthaha. So if you take pra plus visha to enter, pra plus visha iti dhatoho yoge gruha padarthasya, entering the house, गृह पदार्थस्य अधिकरण कारकम अपि अस्ति. We are going to learn the definitions and you will understand. अधिकरण कारकम अपि अस्ति, कर्म कारकम अपि अस्ति. That's why Ramaha gruhe pravishati sounds like a correct prayoga. Ramaha gruham pravishati also sounds like a correct prayoga, because you have adhikarana karaka and karma karaka. Both shaktis are conceptually possible over there. Asyam sthitau paratvat. Where is adhikarana? Adhikarana is here. Where is karma? Karma is here. Paratvat कर्मकारकेण अधिकरणस्य बाधं कृत्वा रामः गृहं प्रविशति इत्येव प्रयोगः साधुत्वं प्राप्नोति. रामः गृहे प्रविशति इति अनुचितः प्रयोगः. So in this particular way, when there is a conflict, another example, dhanusha vidyati, sends and says, throws the arrow with help of the dhanusha, with help of the bow. There the bow is karana karaka because it is used as a helper, and apadana karaka because the arrow leaves the bow. In this particular case, the apadana karaka will be blocked by karana karaka. Dhanusha vidyati iti rupam siddhyati iti prayogaha siddhyati. So there are such some of the examples. We are not going to discuss this. This is the only example gruham pravishati that I wanted to give. But this is the reason why this particular ordering of karakas is done. With this, let us now actually discuss the sutram. Prathamadhyasya chaturthapadasya त्रयोविंशतितमं सूत्रं कारके अधिकारः अयं यत् इत ऊर्ध्वम् अनुक्रमिष्यामः कारके इत्येव तद्वे कारके इत्येव तद्वेदितव्यम. This is a sandhi that has happened, but कारके इत्येव is, it's like that. So कारके इत्येव तद्वेदितव्यम. So whatever is being told from now onwards, we understand it with an additional word called karaka. So apadana is a karaka, sampradana is a karaka, karana is a karaka, and so on. And therefore all these particular sutras in this karaka prakaranam are all samnya sutras. These are not vidhi sutras, not niyama sutras, not aditesha, not adhikara, nothing. Just the karake sutram is an adhikara. After that, there is a samnya called sampradana that is told. There is a samnya called apadana, samnya called adhikarana, kartru, karma, karana, and so on are being told. Therefore, karake iti adhikare सर्वे सर्वाः संज्ञाः सर्वाणि संज्ञा सूत्राणि सन्ति. सो कारक प्रकरण से इदम अधिकार सूत्रमस्ति. अस्य व्याप्तिः तत्प्रयोजको हेतुश्च इति यावद् वर्तते. कारके इज द पदच्छेद, इदम अधिकार सूत्रम, सेम थिंग. व्याप्तिः तत्प्रयोजको हेतुश्च इति पर्यन्तं वर्तते. अस्मिन् अधिकारे भिन्नाः कारक संज्ञाः पाठिताः सन्ति. तासां सर्वासां विशेषण रूपेण इदं सूत्रं कार्यं करोति. So the sutram dhruvamapaye apadanam technically means dhruvamapaye apadanam karakam. Karmanayam abhipraiti sa sampradanam karakam. Sadhakatamam karanam karakam. Adharaha adhikaranam karakam. Karturipsatatamam karma karakam. Swatantraha karta karakam. So all these particular terms, karta, karma, adhikarana, and so on, are all karaka samnya. So two samnyas are being defined, karana samnya and karaka samnya. or adhikarana samnya and karaka samnya. And what is the relationship between the two samnyas? Visheshana visheshya bhavaha. Karma iti visheshanam, karaka iti visheshyam. Or you can take it reverse, whichever do you want to focus on. So visheshana and vishesha are always relative. You can say unnataha chhatraha if it is a chhatra to whom you are saying this is his stall. But you can also say unnataha chhatraha where you are pointing to an unnata person and telling that he is not the teacher, he is the chhatra. So unnataha chhatraha. So there chhatraha can be considered as a visheshana. So visheshana vishesha is a messy topic. You can choose depending on what previous knowledge you have and what new knowledge you are adding. You can consider one as a visheshana, other as visheshya. So over here, assuming you have karaka as the new term associated with karana, adhikarana, karma, you can treat it as a visheshana, or you can treat it reverse, that I already know karaka as a term, karana is a visheshana, adhikarana is a visheshana, and so on. Either way works. Eventually both the samnyas are given over this particular section. Any questions so far? Okay, agre gacchamaha. Now with this particular aspect of Karake Sutram, we discussed where the Karaka Prakaranam is there in Ashtadhyayi. So now let us shift gears and understand where the Vibhakti Prakaranam lies in Ashtadhyayi. So before that, here is a quick recap. Vibhakti is the term given to the pratyayas. So vibhakti iti supratyayanam samnya ekavimshatihi supratyayah vibhaktihi namna ज्ञायन्ते तेषाम अग्रे त्रयः गणाः कृताः सन्ति प्रत्येकं गणस्य प्रथमा द्वितीया इति नामानि दत्तानि सन्ति. We have studied the sutras for all these things. So su aujas is the prathama. The group itself is called prathama, which means every pratyay in that is called prathama. Then auchas is dvitiya, and so on. Etani namani eva प्राये लोकेण विभक्ति इति नामना प्रसिद्धानि सन्ति. So when you say prathama vibhakti, it means su aujas ete vibhakti samyakaha pratyayaha iti atra arthaha. Now understand where is the vibhakti prakaranam. The vibhakti prakaranam is in 2.3. The entire 2.3 starting from 231 all the way up to 23, I think 72 or 74 something is there. So till that particular place, the entire thing is Vibhakti Prakaranam. So Ashtadhyayaha Dvitiyadhyayasya Tritiye Pade 231, this entire particular pada, Ashtadhyayaha Dvitiyadhyayasya Tritiye Pade, प्रत्येकं त्रिकस्य प्रयोगः कुत्र करणीयः तस्य विषये सूत्राणि दत्तानि सन्ति. So you will not find sutras which will say use su pratyaya here, use au pratyaya here, use just pratyaya somewhere else, and so on. The names su aujas are not even mentioned. The names that are mentioned are the names of the triplets. Prathama, Dvitiya, Panchami, Saptami, and so on. And we know Sambodhana is not a separate vibhakti. Prathama itself is the Sambodhana. So Prathama to Saptami names are mentioned. So Pratyekam Trikasya Prayogaha Kutra Karaniyaha Ityasya Sutrani Dattani Santi. Idam prakaranam eva vibhakti prakaranam namna jnayate. So if you go to this particular section, the very first sutram anabhihite is the adhikara sutram of this prakaranam. We keep that aside. Go to the next sutram, karmani dvitiya. तृतीया च होषन्दसि और अपवर्गे तृतीया सप्तमी पंचम्यौ कारक मध्ये कर्म प्रवचनीय युक्ते द्वितीया panchami apang paribhihi. So every sutram you will see there is a vibhakti that is mentioned. Not every sutram doesn't necessarily have it. It will come as an anuvritti in many sutras. So for example, kala dhvanor atyanta sanyoge antarantarena yukte, the vibhakti tritiya comes as the anuvritti over here. So Dvitiya, I think Dvitiya or Tritiya. Which one is in Andhra? Dvitiya Swaryate, na Tritiya. So Dvitiya comes as an anuvritti over here, and so on. So in this particular way, every sutram will have certain clause, certain information, and the vibhakti. Which vibhakti pratyayas should be used, which means which triplet should be used, is given over there. So karmani dvitiya, karma karakasya nirdeshartham, dvitiya samyakaha pratyayaha prayoktavyaha. अपादाने पंचमी, अपादानकारकस्य निर्देशार्थं पंचमी सम्यकाः विभक्ति प्रत्ययाः प्रयोक्तव्याः, and so on. This way, there are how many? I think 20, 72 or 74. Let's see. I don't remember the count. 73. Okay, average. So 73 sutras are there in this particular pada. All of them are associated with vibhakti. Even the last sutram, see, he's still talking about the chaturthi vibhakti. So chaturthi, cha, shisha, yusha, and so on. So this is all vibhakti prakaranam. Just like the way Karaka Prakaranam has Samnya Sutras, the Vibhakti Prakaranam has all Niyama Sutras. Vibhakti Prakaranam does not have Samnya Sutras. There are 1 or 2 Samnya Sutras. We'll keep them aside. But majority, 95% or 99% of the sutras in the Vibhakti Prakaranam are all Niyama Sutras. Why Niyama Sutras? द्वितीयादीनां विभक्ति प्रत्ययानां प्रयोगः कुत्र करणीयः इत्यस्य नियमाः दत्ताः सन्ति. So when you read a sutram like कर्मणि द्वितीया, the way it has to be understood is that द्वितीया, when you read कर्मणि द्वितीया, the way it has to be understood is that dvitiya samyaka pratyayaha sarvatrikaha na. You cannot apply everywhere, wherever it comes to your mind. Dvitiya samyaka pratyayaha sarvatrikaha na apitu कर्मकारकस्य निर्देशार्थम एव प्रयोक्तव्याः अन्यत्र न प्रयोक्तव्याः. So कर्मणि द्वितीया means कर्मणि एव द्वितीया, अपादाने एव पंचमी, anyatra na. Now some people ask a question that this doesn't sound correct, because anytime any sutram you say, it has a some pratyaya. Let's say the pratyaya matup pratyaya is given by some sutram, say tadasya asmin asti iti matupa. You can say tadasya asmin iti ityeva matupa anyatra na. So in this way, sarve pratyvidhayaka sarvani pratyvidhayaka sutrani niyama sutrani bhaveyuhu. So then why are all Pratyvidhayaka Sutras not called Niyama Sutras but only this? The answer is that here in this particular sutram Karmani Dvitiya, Dvitiya Pratyaya is not being defined. Dvitiya Pratyaya is already known to you. Remember Prathama, Dvitiya, Tritiya, all these are Purvacharyahi Dattaha Samnyaha. These are simply used by Panini Maharshi without defining. So this particular sutram, already, when you're reading this particular sutram, you already know what a karma is. You already know what a dvitiya is, and a match is being done saying that dvitiya must be used only for the karma. That's not the case with tadasya asmin asti iti matupa. In tadasya asmin asti iti matupa sutram, the matupa is newly being told, so that's a vidhi. Here, it is nothing is being newly told. पूर्वं यत् पाठितमस्ति तस्यैवत्र पुनरावर्तनं क्रियते, अतः अत्र नियमसूत्रम् इति एव स्वीकृतम् अस्ति. सो एतानि विधिसूत्राणि न द्वितीयादीनां संज्ञानां विधानम् अत्र कृतं नास्ति, केवल प्रयोगस्य नियमनम् अत्र वर्तते. अतः एतानि सर्वाणि नियमसूत्राणि सन्ति. So Karaka Prakaranam is in 1.4, but it is only in a small section of 1.4. It neither begins nor ends. Before the Karaka Prakaranam, there are other sutras like Padasamnya, Bhasamnya, and so on are there. After the Karaka Prakaranam, there are sutras about Nipata Samnya. In between, there is a set of sutras. These are Karaka Prakarana sutras. Sarvani Sutrani, Samnya Sutrani Santi. On the contrary, in 2.3, there are all Vibhakti Sutras. All these are Niyama Sutras spanning the entire pada. So you have 1.4 which is Karaka, you have 2.3 which is Vibhakti. What lies in between 2.1 and 2.2 is the Samasa Prakaranam. So entire 2.1 and entire 2.2 is purely and only Samasa Prakaranam. We are going to talk about it right in the next module, I think, the Samasas. But before that is the Karaka Prakaranam. After that is the Vibhakti Prakaranam. Now with this, let us go to one of the most important parts of today's class. This is where a lot of confusion I have seen. I'm not saying it will be there in your mind, but I have seen confusion happening in many students' understanding. So pay close attention. We have seen karakas separately. Karakas are the shakti, the energy coming in the padartha. We have also seen the concept of vibhakti, that's explicitly the pratyaya, and we know karakasya nirdeshartham tasya padarthasya vachaka shabdat vibhakti pratyayah prayujyate. Now the reverse of this is not true. So yada vibhakti pratyayah prayujyate tada kevalam karakasyev nirdeshartham prayujyate iti nasti. So कारकस्य निर्देशार्थम विभक्ति प्रत्यय प्रयुज्यते परंतु विभक्ति प्रत्ययस्य अन्यानि अपि प्रयोजनानि अवश्यम सन्ति. So somebody was asking रामस्य कृष्णस्य, so there a vibhakti pratyay is being added but there is no karaka being indicated. So विभक्ति प्रत्ययानां भिन्नानि प्रयोजनानि सन्ति. तत्र प्रमुखं प्रथमं प्रयोजनमस्ति कारक निर्देशार्थम विभक्तिः. सो विभक्ति प्रत्ययानाम एकम प्रयोजनम अस्ति पदार्थेषु विद्यमानायाः कारक शक्तेः निर्देशः. प्रत्येकं कारकस्य निर्देशः विभक्ति प्रकरणस्य नियमान् अनुसृत्य भिन्नाभिः विभक्तिभिः संभवति. So contrary to your belief or understanding, there is no rule that karma means dvitiya, karana means tritiya, sampradana means chaturthi. There is no rule like that. This is a many to many mapping. You can have karma karaka indicated by chaturthi vibhakti. You can have karana karaka indicated by panchami vibhakti. You can have kartru karaka indicated by shashti vibhakti. So it is a simply one set of karakas, one set of vibhaktis, and a many to many mapping is there. It's not all to all. So not every karaka is being represented by every vibhakti, but it is also simply not 1 to 1 or 1 to 2 and so on. It is a complex network where one karaka might be represented by different vibhaktis. So this is one thing that students fight to understand. They always believe karma means dvitiya, karana means tritiya, sampradana means chaturthi, and that's where the mix-up of vibhakti and karaka happens. Get those two concepts completely separated. Karaka is the Shakti in the Padartha, Vibhakti. So one circle is the Shakti in the Padartha, other circle is the list of Pratyas, Su, Auja, Sam, Maucha, Stabhyam, Bis, and so on. And just one Karaka can be represented by different Vibhaktis. So Pratyekam Karakasya Nirdeshaha Vibhakti Prakaranasya Niyaman Anusrutya. There are sutras in the Vibhakti Prakaranam. So somebody is asking to repeat. So what I am saying is that there is no one-to-one relation between Karaka and Vibhaktis. Different Karakas can be represented by different Vibhaktis. Karma Karaka can be represented by Saptami Vibhakti. Kartru Karaka can be represented by Shashti Vibhakti. Karana Karaka can be represented by Panchami Vibhakti. So there are different ways in which these Karakas can be represented by these Vibhaktis. Rules of Vibhakti Prakaranam are to be followed. There is no one-to-one mapping. So here is an example. Ramaha Odanam Pachati. In this particular statement, the karma karaka is indicated by the dvitiya vibhakti. This is a common example. Everybody knows this. So, odana padarthe vidyamana karma shaktihi dvitiya vibhaktya nirdeshyate. Ramena pathitam. Atra kartru karaka. So, Rama padartha has the kartrutva shakti. Rama is reading. Rama padarthe vidyamana kartrutva shaktihi Tritiya vibhaktya nirdishta asti. So karma karaka was, this is an example. This is again not one-to-one mapping. But I showed in the previous example that karma karaka was indicated by dvitiya. Now I am showing kartru karaka is indicated by tritiya. The next example is Ramaha gramaya gacchati. Ram goes to village. Not Ramaha gramam gacchati. Ramaha gramaya gacchati. This is a perfectly valid sentence. Grama padartha has a karma karaka and it is being indicated by chaturthi vibhakti. So now karma karaka is being indicated by chaturthi vibhakti. Alpat muktaha, saved by a little. So alpat muktaha. Alpa has a karana shakti. It is being indicated by Panchami Vibhakti. So karana is indicated by Panchami Vibhakti. Ramasya gamanam. Rama is doing the action of going. There is a Shashti Vibhakti on Rama Padartha. Karta is indicated by Shashti Vibhakti. Ramaha Vyakarane Adhiti. Adhiti means expert, the one who is studying. Rama studies the Vyakarana. Ramaha Vyakaranam Adhyeti. Adhite. Rama studies Vyakarana. So the Adhiti, expert, this particular action has karma called Vyakarana. So Ramaha Vyakarane Adhiti. Adhitin is the Nakaranta word. So in feminine form, you would say Sita Vyakarane Adhitini. Like say Swami and Swamini. So Ramaha Vyakarane Adhiti ityatra कर्मकारकस्य निर्देशः. व्याकरण इज अ कर्मकारक. कर्मकारकस्य निर्देशः सप्तमी विभक्त्या कृतः अस्ति. So I have explicitly chosen remote examples which you probably do not know. Somebody is asking what is the difference between Ramaha Gramam Gacchati versus Ramaha Gramaya Gacchati. There is no difference. This is a different way of saying the same thing. Rama goes to village. You can perfectly say it as Ramaha Gramaya Gacchati. There is no big difference over here. Minor differences we can ignore. So somebody saying myth buster class. So that's actually very important. There is no one-to-one mapping between karakas and vibhaktis. Also, when I say not one-to-one mapping, I am not saying all to all. So for example, apadana cannot be indicated by dvitiya vibhakti. So these are like, there are some remote cases which is not possible, but in many cases you can see, for example, karma is indicated by saptami, kartrukaraka is indicated by shashti, and so on. So in this way, कारकस्य निर्देशार्थम भिन्नाः विभक्ति प्रत्ययाः प्रयुज्यन्ते. And how many vibhakti pratyayas or which vibhakti pratyayas? See the examples. You have dvitiya vibhakti, you have tritiya vibhakti, you have chaturthi vibhakti, you have panchami vibhakti, you have shashti vibhakti, and you have saptami vibhakti. Therefore, karakasya nirdeshartham prayuktaha vibhakti pratyayaha dvitiya, tritiya, chaturthi, panchami, shashti, and saptami. An important vibhakti is missing over here, not a typing mistake. Prathama vibhakti karakasya nirdeshartham na prayujyate. Ramaha gramam gacchati ityatra Ramaha iti pade vidyamana prathama vibhakti karaka vibhakti nasti. Take all your previous knowledge and throw in trash can. Prathama vibhakti is not a karaka vibhakti. Ramaha, Rama padartha indeed has a kartrutva shakti. We are not denying that. It is the Rama who is going. But the supratyaya present on the word Rama does not indicate the kartrutva shakti. The ama pratyaya present on the grammar indeed indicates the karma shakti. We have seen the example over here. Ramaha odanam pachati ityatra karmakarakasya nirdeshaha avashyam dvitiyaya kritaha asti. Ramaha gramam gacchati ityatra Ramaha Rama padarthe vidyamanaya kartrutva shakti sa su pratyayena na nirdeshyate kimarthamiti chet prathama vibhakti कारक विभक्ति नास्ति. प्रथमा विभक्ति कारकस्य निर्देशार्थम न प्रयुज्यते. So that was the first use of the vibhaktis. Karaka nirdeshartham vibhakti. But as I mentioned, so somebody is asking, Atra kartrukarakam katham nirdishate? I have not yet studied that, so I'll study and let you know. Atra kartrukarakam katham nirdishate. So, but we'll keep that question aside for now. But the point to understand over here is that Karaka nirdeshartham is only one possible way of indicating the vibhaktis. Karaka nirdeshartham vibhakti. There are other prayojanas. विभक्ति प्रत्ययानाम अन्यानि अपि कानिचन प्रयोजनानि सन्ति. I am not listing the prayojanas over here. I'm just giving two more prayojanas. There are a few more, but we will not go in those. अन्ये द्वे मुख्ये प्रयोजने विभक्ति प्रत्ययाः यथा कारकस्य निर्देशार्थं प्रयुज्यन्ते तथैव तेषाम् अन्ये द्वे प्रयोजने अपि स्तः विभक्ति प्रत्ययाः संख्यायाः निर्देशार्थं प्रयुज्यन्ते. So when you are saying Ramah pathati, the ekvachana samyakah supratyayah indicates one Rama. So when you just use the Pratipadikam Rama, you have no idea how many Ramas are there. It's the same Pratipadikam Rama. That requirement is satisfied by the Vibhakti Pratyaya. Now here all the Vibhakti Pratyayas are there starting from Prathama to Saptami, because every Vibhakti Pratyaya has three different sections. Ekavachanam, Dvivachanam, Bahuvachanam. So Vibhakti Pratyayaha Sankhyaha Nirdeshartham Prayujjante. So Ekavachana Samyakaha Supratyayaha Ekam Ramam Darshayati. रामौ पठतः द्विवचन सम्यकः औ प्रत्ययः द्वौ रामौ दर्शयति. रामाः पठन्ति बहुवचन सम्यकः जस् प्रत्ययः अनेकान् रामान् दर्शयति. So again ekatva, dvitva or bahutva is in the Rama object itself. When five Ramas are coming together, that samuha itself has bahutva. The jas pratyaya is only expressing that. So again, swarthika pratyaya. So Ramaha pathanti. Atra bahuvachana samyakaha jas pratyaya swarthikaha asti. Same for su and au, and it indicates the sankhya. So this is the second important prayojana of the vibhaktis. And third, so first was karaka, second was sankhya, and the third one is vishishtasya shabdasya, vishishtasya upapadasya, vishishtasya karma pravachaniyasya yoge विद्यमानानां शब्दानां निर्देशार्थम विभक्ति प्रत्यय प्रयुज्यते. So you all know saha requires tritiya, rute requires panchami, and so on. So that relationship विशिष्टस्य शब्दस्य योगे विद्यमानानां शब्दानां निर्देशार्थम विभक्ति प्रत्यय प्रयुज्यन्ते. Here there is no meaning at all. So when you are saying ramena sah putraha, the tritiya present on the Rama word has nothing to do with Rama padartha. I mean, it will indicate some meaning that there is a putra associated with Rama, but that's different. The Tritiya Vibhakti over here is not coming because it wants to indicate some property of Rama. It is simply coming because there is a Saha word over there. So specific words in the sentence will trigger new Vibhaktis. So Tritiya, for example, Saha Yoge Tritiya, or namas iti upapadasya yoge chaturthi ramaya namaha. So again, these are swarthikas because they are not indicating, they are anarthakas itself, not even swarthika. They are not indicating any meaning. Prati is a karma pravachini. I'm going to talk about what karma pravachinis are in one of the later classes in this module. So prati karma pravachiniyasya yoge dvitiya vibhakti ramam prati gacchati, goes towards Rama. Adhi karma pravachiniyasya yoge saptami adhirame bhuhu, and so on. So in this way, vibhakti pratyayas are used to indicate sankhya, vibhakti pratyayas are used to indicate karaka, vibhakti pratyayas are used to indicate upapada, karma pravachaniya. As somebody mentioned, vibhakti pratyayas are also used to indicate sambandha. So Ramasya putraha, there is a relationship. Again, that relationship exists at the object level. There is a Rama object and Putra object, and the relationship exists right over there. That's only being expressed over here. So Ramasya putraha, that's a sambandha. And there is something called Pratipadikartha. The Vibhakti Pratyayas are also used to indicate Pratipadikartha. So there are many Prayojanas. Later on in our course, we will learn over all these particular aspects. So this is the whole basic story of Vibhakti Pratyayas. Any questions so far? We have two more slides remaining and then we will be done. The two slides are highly overloaded. So I want your full attention. Now let us talk about the actual sutra. So we have the Adhikara Sutram of the Vibhakti Prakaranam. As I mentioned, Ashtadhyayam Vibhakti Prakaranam Dvitiyadhyaya se Sampurne Tritiye Pade 231 to 2373. I must have written the slide from my memory instead of referring. So 2373 iti yavat sthapitam asti. The very first sutram of this particular sequence 231 anabhihite. Here anabhihite, this is an adhikara sutram, one of the pretty complex sutras of Ashtadhyayi. Anabhihite is an adhikara sutram. This adhikara runs over the entire Vibhakti Prakaranam 2.3, and this adhikara tells you kaha vibhakti pratyayah kada prayoktavyaha. So all possible cases. So say for example, if you take the dvitiya vibhakti pratyaya, let's take a sample example. If you want to say dvitiya vibhakti pratyaya, so karmani dvitiya will give you dvitiya vibhakti pratyaya for karma karaka. Then there is antara antarena yukte. This will give you the vibhakti pratyaya for the word dvitiya vibhakti pratyaya in the yoga of antara and antarena. So this is the upapada. As I mentioned, like saha, namas, and so on, there is the word called antara, or there is a word called antarena. In association with that, there is a dvitiya. Karmani dvitiya, on the other hand, is the karaka vibhakti. For indicating the karma shakti, you have dvitiya. So in this way, there are sutras that are intermixed. There will be sutras that will give vibhakti for a karaka. There will be sutras that will give vibhakti for a sambandha, Ramasya putraha. Sutras that will give vibhakti for a particular upapada. Sutras that will give vibhakti for something called as pratipadikartha, and so on. So अस्मिन् अधिकारे विद्यमानैः सूत्रैः कहा विभक्ति प्रत्ययः कदा प्रयोक्तव्यः इत्यस्य नियमाः दत्ताः सन्ति. The very first sutram is anabhihite. Let us read what Kashika says. I'm going to go slow. Let us understand. Anabhihite. Anabhihite iti adhikaraha ayam veditavyaha. I hope everybody must have understood this, that this particular sutram is an adhikara sutram. Anabhihite iti adhikaraha atra veditavyaha, ayam veditavyaha, yad itaha urdhvam anukramishyamaha. Whatever is being told from now onwards, yat itaha urdhvam anukramishyamaha, anabhihite ityeva tad veditavyam. That has to be executed in the context of anabhihite. So the meaning of first two statements is clear. Anabhihite is called adhikara, like karake, and whatever is being told in this particular adhikara is to be executed in the context of anabhihite. But the main question over here is, what is anabhihite? So anabhihite ityukte anukte ityukte anirdishte karmadau vibhakti bhavati. The word anabhihite means untold. Na abhihita. Abhihita ityukte nirdishta ityukte ukta. Yat uktam nasti, yad nirdishtam nasti, tad anuktam asti, tad anirdishtam asti, tad anabhihitam asti, tatra karmadau vibhaktihi bhavati. What does this mean? This means something very important. Understand this. This is the most important paragraph of today's slide deck. Yatra पदार्थे विद्यमानायाः कारकशक्तेः निर्देशः केनचित् अन्येन मार्गेण कृतः नास्ति. When the karaka shakti present in the object is not being expressed by a different mechanism, tatraiva tasya karakasya nirdeshartham अस्मिन् अधिकारे पाठितं नियमम् अनुसृत्य यथोचितं सुप् प्रत्ययः प्रयोक्तव्यः. Look at a karaka shakti which is not being expressed so far. Only that karaka shakti can be expressed using the rules of this adhikara by adding appropriate sup pratyaya. यदि कारकस्य निर्देशः केनचित् अन्येन मार्गेण कृतः वर्तते, if that karaka shakti is being expressed by a different mechanism, then तस्य कारकस्य निर्देशार्थम् अस्य अधिकारस्य प्रयोगः न करणीयः इत्युक्ते एतादृशस्य कारकस्य निर्देशार्थं प्रातिपदिकात् कारकवाचकः विभक्तिप्रत्ययः न प्रयोक्तव्यः. Let's understand this once again. When the object's karaka shakti is already expressed, do not use the rules of this adhikara to express that karaka shakti again. Only in those cases where the karaka shakti is not already expressed, only in those cases where the karaka shakti is anukta, na ukta, anirdishta, na nirdishta, anabhihita, na abhihita, only when the karaka shakti is not yet expressed by something else, you are allowed to use the sutras of this prakaranam. But if the karaka shakti is expressed by some other mechanism, do not use the sutras of this prakaranam. Now, what does this all mean? So, our dear Chhatra says, Anabhihite, what's the point of this adhikara? Anabhihite iti adhikaraha kimarthamuktaha? किम पदार्थे विद्यमानायाः कारकशक्तेः निर्देशः एकाधिकैः प्रकारैः संभवति. So he says, what are you talking? How can karaka shakti be expressed if it is not the sup pratyaya? So how can you say it is already expressed, then do not express again? And if it is not expressed, what are the ways by which the karaka shakti can be expressed? So somebody is asking a question, otherwise how it is expressed? So however in the world it can be abhihita. So Acharya says, so what is the question? Kim पदार्थे विद्यमानायाः कारकशक्तेः निर्देशः एकाधिकैः प्रकारैः संभवति किम. So this is throwing all my knowledge in trash, right? Whatever I have learned in Karaka Prakaranam does not resonate with what's going on. So I already had enough damages. I have learned today that Ramaha Grantham Pathati, the Ramaha Visarga Supratyay is not indicating the Karta. I have learned the differences between Karaka and Vibhakti. Enough damages are done. What is this new thing going on over here? So, Kim Padarthe Vidyamanayaha Karaka Shaktehe Nirdeshaha Ekadhikaihi Prakaraihi Sambhavati. And the Acharya says, and not Ekadhikaihi Vastutaha Karaka Shaktehe Nirdeshaha Shadbhihi Prakaraihi Sambhavati. There are 6 different ways in which the Karaka Shakti can be expressed, and not 6 Karakas, that's different. 6 different ways in which the Karaka Shakti can be expressed, and Sup is only one of them. So Sup Pratyayena, Ting Pratyayena, Krut Pratyayena, Tadhita Pratyayena. I am in my full senses when I am writing this slide. You might think I am hallucinating, but no, this is all going to turn your understanding of Karakas. So, Sup Pratyayena, Ting Pratyayena, Krut Pratyayena, Tathita Pratyayena, Samasena, and Nipata, that's the Avyaya, Nipatena. So, Karaka Shakti can be expressed in 6 different ways, and now the previous sutra might make sense that when there is a Karaka Shakti which is not expressed, or which is rather, let me put it reverse way, when there is a Karaka Shakti which is expressed by either Ting or Krut or Tadhit or Samas or Nipata, do not use the rules of this Prakaranam and express it by Sup again. Only when there is a Karaka Shakti, you find a Karaka Shakti which is not indicated by Ting, Krut, Tadhita, Samasa and Nipata, only then use the rules of this Prakaranam, because in that Prakaranam of Anabhihite, only Sup Pratyayas are being told, Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi and so on. So that is the Sup Pratyaya section. We are defining the Vibhaktis for certain Karakas in that particular section, where the Sup Pratyayas are given. So we put a disclaimer. We say something like, for example, while this course was started 1 year ago, I put a disclaimer. Those who have not studied Ashtadhyayi can only enter this course, others cannot. Exactly same thing is happening. If the Karaka Shakti is not indicated by Ting Krut Tadhita Samasa Nipata, then it can be indicated by using one of the rules of this Prakaranam, using the Sup Pratyaya. Now, this is an extremely complex topic when we say Ting Pratyaya, Krut Pratyaya, Tadhita, and so on. So, we are not going to study it in full details, but I am not going to leave you like that. So, we are not going to talk about Tadhita, we are not going to talk about Samasa, and we are not going to talk about Nipata. But I will teach you how Karaka Shakti can be expressed using Ting Pratyaya and how Karaka Shakti can be expressed using Krut Pratyaya. And then you can assume that there are similar ways with which there is a Karaka Shakti expression possible using Tadhita, Samasa and Nipata. I have a course in Hindi called Panini Vyakaran mein Karaka Prakaranam. In that course, I have explained all these 5 things, Ting, Krut, Tadhita, Samasa, Nipata, in significant details. Those of you who are curious can go and look. It is not needed for our course. I am going to, even though technically it is possible to have Karaka Shakti expressed using 6 different ways, for our course, I am going to limit it and I am going to show how Karaka Shakti can be expressed using Ting Pratyaya and how Karaka Shakti can be expressed using Krut Pratyaya. And then there will be similar examples of Tadhita, Samasa and Nipata. We will keep that aside. And then we will say, Yada Karaka Shaktehe Nirdeshaha Ting Pratyayena na bhavati. Yada Karaka Shaktehe Nirdeshaha Krut Pratyayena na bhavati. Tada इत्युक्ते तादृशी अनभिहिता कारकशक्तिः यत्र विद्यते तस्याः निर्देशार्थम् अनभिहिते अधिकारे विद्यमानाः सुप् प्रत्ययाः प्रयोक्तव्याः. सो अयं क्लिष्टः विषयः. अस्य समग्ररूपेण अध्ययनमिदानीं न कुर्मः. एतेभ्यः केवलं 3 प्रकाराः अस्माभिः अध्येतव्याः, द सुप्, तिङ् and कृत. And the Acharya gives examples one by one. Sup pratyayena karakasya abhidhanam. So understand, sup is the fallback. If nothing matches, then sup. So sup pratyayena karakasya abhidhanam. Acharya gives an example. Ramaha odanam pachati. Ityatra ओदन पदार्थे विद्यमानं कर्मत्वम् ओदन शब्दात् विहितेन द्वितीया सम्यकेन अम् इति सुप् pratyayena prakati bhavati. So here there is an example where the karma shakti, the karaka shakti is indicated by the sup pratyaya. Second and more interesting example. Ting pratyena karakasya abhidhanam. Somebody was asking, in Ramaha odanam pachati, who is indicating the karta? So Ramaha odanam pachati ityatra Rama padarthe vidyamanam kartrutvam pachadhatoho vihitena tip iti ting pratyayena prakati bhavati. This is another shock to you all. The ting pratyaya, that is the tip tasji, the tip pratyaya in Ramaha odanam pachati, or in the word pachati, indicates the kartrutva shakti present in Rama. The pacha dhatu doesn't have kartrutva shakti. Kartrutva shakti is there in Rama, but it is indicated by the ting pratyaya. And similarly, krut pratyayena karakasya abhidhanam. Ramaha odanam pakvavan. Ityatra Rama padarthe vidyamana kartrutva shaktihi pachadhatoho vihitena tavatu iti pratyena prakati bhavati. So this connects us back all the way to the beginning of the class, that either a tinganta or a krudanta indicates a kriya. And here the tinganta and krudanta is not just indicating the kriya, it is also indicating the karta, the doer of that kriya. So Ramaha odanam pachati ityatra Rama padarthe vidyamanam kartrutvam pachadhatoho vihitena tip iti ting pratyena prakati bhavati. Ramaha odanam pakvavan ityatra Rama padarthe vidyamanam kartrutvam pachadhatoho vihitena ktavatu iti krut pratyayena prakati bhavati. And then the student says, I don't understand this. प्रथमम् उदाहरणं तु सरलम् अस्ति. The first example is understood by everybody. The Ramah odanam pachati. Odana has a karma shakti indicated by am. This is very trivial. Tad avashyam avagatam maya. Prathamam udaharanam. परंतु द्वितीये तृतीये च उदाहरणे तिङ् प्रत्ययेन कृत् प्रत्ययेन च कारकस्य अभिधानं कथं कृतं? Why should I believe you? You might say anything random. So katham krutam? Why is the su pratyaya in Ramaha not indicating the kartrutva shakti? Let it be Ramaha odanam pachati or let it be Ramaha odanam pakvavan. Why have this weird complex thing that there is a tip pratyaya which is indicating kartrutva shakti in pachati or tavatu pratyaya indicating the kartrutva shakti in pakvavan and so on? So prathamam udharanam tu saralam asti parantu dvitiye tritiye cha udaharane तिङ् प्रत्ययेन कारकस्य निर्देशः कृतः कथं कृतः कृत् प्रत्ययेन कारकस्य निर्देशः कथं कृतः इति किमपि नावगतम्. I did not understand anything. And then the teacher says there is a lot of happiness in ajnana. So we will stop here. Anuvartishyate. We are going to take this question and spend a full 90 minutes in tomorrow's class understanding this particular aspect. Samapayamaha. अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समुत्थिता वेदानामुपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. शब्द ब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान्यो विलक्षणं सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलेः शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. धन्यवादः.